Good afternoon. I have the pleasure of leading Bloomberg Philanthropies' Greenwood initiative, which is a national philanthropic portfolio committed to accelerating the pace of wealth accumulation for and within the Black community and interrupting the disinvestment that has historically and continues to happen in communities across the country. Right now, this is such a moment for me to come back to this stage from last year's summit to re-welcome Mayor Bibb from Cleveland, Ohio, and also who is the Climate Mayor's Chair. My old friend Steve Benjamin, who is the former mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, and has come a very long way to Washington, D.C. to be the director of the White House Office of Engagement and public engagement, and also Mayor Shawyn Patterson-Howard, who is joining us, took a long trip here from Mount Vernon, and is past president of the African American Mayors Association. I'm so honored to be here with you today because local leaders matter. We know that. And in this moment, we're in a historic time. Our current administration, in the Biden-Harris administration, has intentionally inserted equity as a focus in new and robust federal funding through programs like the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, unlocking $800 billion for U.S. cities for new investments in infrastructure and climate change. Black communities are actually seeing unprecedented investments as a result. According to the Black Wealth Data Center, the median per capita federal investment is nearly $108 for cities that are white majority cities, compared to $355 for cities with more than 30% Black population. Mayor Benjamin, how has the Biden administration continued to prioritize equity even beyond this funding, and why are those opportunities so important for mayors today?
Sure. No. Well, first of all, thank you, Garnesha, and thank you to the whole BA family for having us here today on behalf of the administration. Many of you may remember from the very first day of the administration, literally the very first executive order the president signed was a commitment to equity and equitable investment. And it's tough. I mean, it's wonderful hearing all the incredible data, the spirited engagement that we're hearing from these amazing experts you're having on the stage. Because a lot of folks don't remember where we were 4 years ago. Right. And it's very easy to try and walk away from the greatest pandemic since 1918, the greatest economic disruption, some would say, maybe since 1929, and the greatest social unrest we saw after the murder of George Floyd, all happening at one time in this country, and how it illuminated how the infrastructure of this country was broken in so many different ways, and how people, many of who have been underserved for many years, were set back that much further. And that's why it's always great to come and get real data that you can then turn into humanized data that helps to influence policy. That backdrop led to a commitment from the administration that everything that we did going forward, every policy prescription, every piece of legislation, from the Inflation Reduction Act to the infrastructure bill to the very foundation of the American Rescue Plan, even the CHIPS plan, had to make sure that communities that had not been historically invested in, realizing that some of the data that Shelley and others highlighted earlier showed that if you made these investments, you made them strategically, you could start to move the needle in a very meaningful ways. And if you do it truly in partnership with these amazing local CEOs who are driving economies in ways, I would say, until these are two of the very best mayors in this country right here, y'all, that you have right here. Two amazing leaders. Shawyn, she's the past president, like 4 days out. She was president 4 or 5 days ago. Amazing leader of the African American mayors. Justin sits at the center of probably $150 billion GDP, a regional economy that affects not just Ohio, but the rest of the country. But that partnership was so important, and if you're going to invest equitably, you have to do it with a place-based strategy that recognizes these partners as equals, and realizing you can actually move the needle. And we're starting to see, obviously, the results of equity-infused, place-based investments that make a difference. And we just got to stay the course.
Mayor Bibb, we're going to pull up a slide now that looks at the fact that your city has received 10 times the median amount from other Black cities. I'm sure that's worth a hand clap here and a smile.
Thank you, President Biden.
How has this influx of federal funding, influenced your city and your overall outcomes that you're moving towards in your city?
It's made the world of difference for us in Cleveland. When I took office, we were facing a lot of headwinds in my city. We were ranked at the time the poorest big city in America. Nearly 1 out of 2 of our children were living in poverty, and the worst city in America for Black women. And after the pandemic, because of the great work of the Biden-Harris administration, Cleveland received over $512 million through the American Rescue Plan, one of the largest federal investments we've ever gotten as a city. And so that investment has given us a really strong foundation to build not just an economic comeback for the entire city, but an economic comeback for Black Clevelanders as well, too. And there have been 2 specific initiatives that I've been focused on. One, at one time, Cleveland was the 6th largest city in America. We were the city that birthed the first billionaire in John D. Rockefeller. We really led the first American Industrial Revolution. And because of the great work that we've seen with this administration, we have the ability to make things in America again, but also make things in Ohio and cities like Cleveland again. And so our largest allocation of ARPA funds has been our $50 million investment to take 1,000 acres of vacant brownfield land in predominantly Black neighborhoods in our city and turn that land into shovel-ready greenfield sites. Why is that important? Because every month I'm getting calls from CEOs who need 20 acres of land, 30 acres of land, 40 acres of land. Right. We didn't have the land ready to go. And we believe with this investment, we can create up to 65,000 new direct and indirect jobs in Black neighborhoods. That's what a new economic comeback looks like in a city like Cleveland, Ohio.
It also is what it looks like to use the money that is available at the federal government to create an equity agenda, a local equity agenda that specifically benefits Black people. We're going to get in later how complex that is, but I just wanted to call it out now. Mayor Howard, we sort of talked about just on the side, your city is significantly smaller. And, with all the opportunity that's out there, what are the challenges that you have with the smaller city actually going after this type of funding and other partnerships that might come along?
So absolutely, as Mayor Bibb said, you received over $500 million. In Mount Vernon, being much smaller, we received just under $41 million. The challenge is that we were starting from different spaces. Literally almost 75% of the money that we received needed to go to infrastructure, just making sure that neighborhoods where Black people resided could flush their toilets. 40% of our sewer system was crumbling. Our entire fleet of garbage trucks we were borrowing from New York City. We had no police cars, we had no fire trucks. Our city was crumbling. And so the American Rescue Plan money didn't allow us to build up, it allowed us to lay a new basic foundation so that we could serve our residents and give them basic government services. We've been able to do some work around MGI, Mayors for Guaranteed Income, help families. We're helping some small businesses and some not-for-profits, but it was really about bailing the city out and allowing us to be a functioning city. And so some of the challenges, coming into the mayoralty in Mount Vernon, is we had no bond rating since 2018, no cash reserve, and we didn't have access to our financial records for 4 years. And we were just losing staff to attrition, and there was no vision. We were operating in crisis mode, and a lot of your smaller cities operate under the radar in that way. No consecutive mayors in 20 years. I'm the first person to receive a second term in 20 years. So no consistency in leadership. And so when you look at the difference, in Mount Vernon, us being able to go after unprecedented federal monies is a greater challenge because we just didn't have the infrastructure. We didn't have the grant writing teams. We never invested in GIS. We hadn't focused on data collection. And you need data and able to make decisions, and data helps you to tell the story so that you can get the dollars. And so, we are starting to have some success. But as a small city, and a small city embroiled in controversy, we had to regain our credibility as a government. And then we had to start putting in place the structures needed to go after that money. And that's why I'm so excited that we're here today, because it is the public and public-private partnerships that's going to allow Mount Vernon, now that we're building, to have the bandwidth that we need to tap into this unprecedented investment.
That's right. Mayor Bibb, Mayor Howard just underlined the point that data is so important in case making.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how much data, we've heard so many new data points and new research today, impacts your ability to lead an equity agenda in your city?
It's everything. As your former boss once said, you can't manage what you can't measure.
He's still yeah.
Still the boss. And one of the things that we've historically done in Cleveland was we would spread out our economic development resources like peanut butter. And those resources have been finite. And so part of our strategy with the American Rescue Plan funds, we recognize that in the east side of Cleveland, the majority black part of Cleveland, in the Lee Harvard part of the city, that was a place that needed real funding to reinvest in the black middle class, because at the height of Cleveland's heyday, it was the height of the black middle class in our city. And so we have spent $15 million in that part of Cleveland to do a couple things. Number one, $5 million to restore the main street commercial corridors in that part of the city, because in many ways, your main streets determine what goes on in your side streets. Right. The second thing we did, we have an aging population that doesn't have enough credit to maybe get a home loan to repair their roof or their basement, or maybe he's not credit worthy to get a brand new home loan or refinance their home. And so we have dedicated real funding around home repair and home rehab, particularly for our seniors. And the last thing we've done is we've taken old sites that have yet to be developed and have created targeted, differentiated incentives to encourage private sector development in that part of Cleveland, all totaling now over $100 million of new investment in Cleveland's southeast side.
Mayor Howard, I'm just going to turn the question really back to you and talk about and ask about why is it important to have that neighborhood level data? You are surrounded by a county that has very different realities. Could you talk to us a little bit about what you're up against in making the case?
Absolutely. So, Westchester has 42 municipalities, Mount Vernon being one of them. We're at the southernmost part of the county. And if you know the history, they wanted to literally chop off the 10550 zip code and put it into the Bronx because Westchester is the golden apple. And 10550, which is a large part of our city, is what they consider the rotten core of the golden apple. And so when you look at our demographics as a county, when you look at county-wide level data, then you will think there is much more equity in the county than what truly exists. When you have city level data, then you can demonstrate the inequities that are happening in Mount Vernon as opposed to Westchester County. And when you get down to neighborhood level data, then you can see that the investments in Oakwood Heights, which is in the Fleetwood section of Mount Vernon, has been very different than Kingsbridge Gardens and the Heights or 3rd Street neighborhood. And so it's very, very easy in a community like Westchester to say that Black people are faring really, really well. But when you're able to get down to city level and neighborhood level data, it tells the true story, and it is inequitable. And we cannot allow the data to exist at that level, because then we can have the very true and harsh conversations, courageous conversations that need to be had. And you can, we have to get to a point where we stop begging and we start demanding. And city level and neighborhood level data allows you to do that. We're not begging. We're saying that this is where the divestment has happened, this is where the numbers are skewed, and this is what needs to happen in order to bring equity to our communities.
Sure. Mayor Benjamin, President Harris, Vice President Harris just launched an economic opportunity tour. And she is traveling around, will be to cities and neighborhoods across the country to really get the pulse of what's happening on the ground and look for, as this session is looking for, solutions. Can you tell us what are you really excited about now compared to when you were a mayor? And what are you already hearing on the ground around what are the realities of creating economic equity agendas in cities across the country?
First, I'm so happy that she's on the tour. What I'm even more encouraged by is I went to Atlanta with her earlier this week. Know she's going to Detroit next week, and I think she may have announced that today. I'm not sure. Is that prior to the tour? Is that she spent a great deal of time listening to wealth creators, listening to community leaders, listening very deeply to. I will tell you all. Some of you. I think when I met Justin, he was a pollster.
Yeah, he was.
He was a Gallup at the time, and so I know both of these folks feel very strong about data. Every single poll that you'll look at right now across every demographic, and certainly as it relates to Black people, will talk about economic empowerment, the ability to create wealth and generational wealth, and certainly even just to survive and thrive in this economy. Work, wages, and wealth is what everyone's focused on. And she's listening deeply on those issues and deciding that she's going to take herself out to the community, engage in some strategic cities around the country to make sure that we're connecting the dots in a meaningful way. Listening first, and then leaning in, telling people the story. And I feel good I don't have to go through all the data points that everyone else did much more eloquently than I could earlier. And then showing people, obviously, what the forward-looking agenda looks like, what things would look like. I'm on this side of the Hatch Act now, so I can't talk too much politics, but what 4 more years under Biden-Harris might look like, and using legitimate data that, again, you get a chance to humanize is so important. You mentioned, and Mayor Patterson-Howard may have touched on the importance of public-private partnerships as well. I do want to say many of you are in the room and have partnered with me and supported us over the years. The importance of thoughtful, intergovernmental, intersectoral, public-private, philanthropic partnerships can't be lost on anyone. I'm always excited to take either one of these two into any room with me with a partner, because they understand that in order to tackle some of these challenges, it takes everyone. It takes a federal government that doesn't have an infrastructure week every couple of weeks, but actually decides they're going to invest $1.2 trillion in an infrastructure decade. It takes real philanthropic partners like Bloomberg Philanthropies. But I will tell you, cities in this country would not have made it out of the pandemic without the leadership of Mike Bloomberg and Patty Harris and your entire team there. It takes a BA. I'm convinced that sometimes I think I work for Joe Biden. I work for Sam Tweedy, Tony. Because I talked to Sam more at your direction and Charles's direction than I do anyone else. But it takes this real leadership of everyone stepping up to make sure we're addressing the real needs on the ground. The VP is doing that in a very meaningful way and touching people who historically have not been touched. We had 450 people in the room the other day, and it's making a difference.
So we were all just in Atlanta last week for the African American Mayors Association conference, and Mayor Bibb, you, along with Mayor Steve Reed, along with Black Economic Alliance, hosted a group of mayors having very real talk. I want you to share a little bit about some things that emerged in that conversation, and really with an eye towards, with this being private sector in the room, funders in the room, what were the mayors saying that this group needs to hear?
Well, when I think about the role of the Black Economic Alliance and its work, wages, wealth agenda, the role of mayors, but Black mayors, is central to operationalizing that vision. Every mayor on this stage comes from the Maynard Jackson School of Government.
Yes.
And Maynard showed us how to create real Black wealth. But right now, Black mayors are under attack. That's right. Because the world sees, and this country sees, that Black mayors are leading the most dynamic, forward-thinking cities in this country. and they're scared. And we have an opportunity to elevate Black mayors, to make the promise of the BEA agenda real. But if we don't find a way to organize that collective power, that's going to be undermined. If we don't find a way for Black mayors in red states to navigate the murky waters of them getting attacked, their power being attacked, that promise will be undermined. So we have a long way to go, but I think Black mayors are part of the long-term solution.
Thank you. We know how important that is. Mayor Howard, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question, and I want you to be direct if possible. What do you need from the private sector by way of private-public partnerships?
I mean, the easiest thing to say is funding, right? But funding is not the only answer. We need investment of your time and talent, not just your treasure. All three are important, but we need your subject matter expertise. We need workforce development. Right now, with the trillions of dollars or the hundreds of millions that are coming into our communities, in order for us to do workforce development to ensure, we said work, wages, and wealth, right? In order to ensure that that money stays in our community, we need people who are trained to work in the blue workforce, water infrastructure. There's so much money going into EV charging and sustainability. We need people who know how to work in the green workforce. I am tired. The very people who I needed when I had no money turned their backs. And now that I have a few $100 million, not necessarily coming from the federal government, but we received one of the biggest environmental justice awards from the state of New York. We received about $160 million. And now they're knocking on my door from 4 and 5 counties and 2 and 3 states away, right? But the workforce that I need in my city, to be able to hire them so that for every $1 million of investment, 16 living wage jobs are created. And so we need someone to come in and work with us around workforce development. We need engineers. We need people who can do road paving. We need Black organizations who can do bridges. We've had 7 bridges repaired. And again, I'm not seeing any Black engineers and companies who are bidding for those jobs and getting those jobs. And so hundreds of millions are being invested in my community, but it's not recycling and it's not staying. And someone in Orange County and lots of communities in Long Island are benefiting, and Mount Vernon is getting infrastructure replaced, and we're excited for that. But the money is not staying in our community. The people are not spending that money in our restaurants and our retail stores. They're not buying the houses. And that is how wealth is going to build in our community, when we have the type of partnership around workforce development, when we have the type of expertise around the bond market, around investments, around engineering, economic development, financial management. Everyone turned their back on my community, right? The person before me was indicted and convicted. Everyone walked away. And now people are running back. But I need people who look like us to come and partner. Mount Vernon is 4 square miles, 75,000 people on paper, about 106,000 in reality, but undercount in the census because we weren't organized. That's 26,000 people per square mile, one of the most densely populated cities in the country and in the top 15 Blackest cities. And when you have a small footprint like that, a small investment and coordinized and intentional investment can not just change a neighborhood, but it can change a community. And we can be the Black Mecca and not the Black mess. You know, we can be a Black Wall Street in Wakanda. And so we are more than happy. And we're looking for people who are interested in innovating and investing and coming 10 toes down and working with us because we know that we'll make a difference. And we are good partners. So we welcome you into Mount Vernon to make a difference with us and to fight and to show how cities large and small can make a difference and to develop your best practices in Mount Vernon.
Okay, mayors, we are at time. I know this is hard for mayors. I've worked for 3 now, and so I know how hard this is. I'm gonna give you 2 seconds and say, in 5 words or less, think of a model or think of something out there that you think is so promising that everybody in this audience needs to pay attention to. In the meantime, while they're thinking, because I want them to be concise, I want to let you all know we've invested at Bloomberg Philanthropies in the Black Wealth Data Center. Here, as you can see, you can look scan the QR code if you like. We also have a wonderful setup here in the lobby that you can visit. We talked about how important data is. It is important for these mayors to be able to set agendas, for them to advocate for what they need, even when they're up against folks who might say either they're not doing enough or they shouldn't be prioritizing our people, Black people in this country. All right, what are the models? What are the things that everyone needs to be paying? 5 words, Mayor.
It won't be 5 words, but it might be 10 seconds.
Okay.
I'd start right here on the stage. Mayor Patterson-Howard is very clear about what she needs. You all know people who want to make money. Let's direct them to her. Mayor Bibb has put together some of the most creative capital stacks that's turned $10 million into $100 million in some very creative ways in Cleveland. Every Black mayor in this country has some variation of what they're doing. Think about your friends, your colleagues who want to make money, and let's direct them straight to these mayors.
Thank you.
I'm going to brag on my city for a little bit. In the audience is Michael Jean, CEO of Growth Ops, the first Black green bank in the world. We just got over $150 million through the Solar for All program, creating Black green jobs in Cleveland. That's a great model.
Great.
Workforce development, economic development.
Thank you very much. And with that, I will thank BA, Sam Tweedy. Thank you so much, and forgive me for going over a few minutes.